second season of WION Business Masters, a show that offers you exclusive insights into the journeys and strategies of global business leaders. And well, joining us today is Miss Neha Singh, CEO and co-founder of Tracxn, which is one of the leading data intelligence platforms for private markets. Welcome to WION Business Masters, Ms. Singh.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Likewise. Now, you have over a decade of experience in the venture funding space. Of course, we will touch upon your journey as well. But first up, how has your experience been like so far?
So I think it has been amazing. I entered into the venture capital landscape for the first time 15 years back. And since then, I think what has been really exciting to see is actually seeing this whole startup ecosystem evolve. So interestingly, when we actually started in this space, the word unicorn did not exist. Companies, even like good companies, would probably take about 6 months just to raise like $500,000. And from there to now, when startups have become sort of ubiquitous, you have so many people around you that are working for startups or are doing something. So it has been amazing to see this whole evolution in the last decade and a half of a startup ecosystem as well as the venture capital, how has that evolved?
Right, absolutely. Now, during your stint at Sequoia Capital, you realized perhaps how difficult it is to get information on private companies. If my research is correct, that was one of your motivations to start Tracxn. What else inspired you to start your own firm?
So that's correct. And so when I was working as a venture capital investor in Sequoia Capital, you realize that as a private market investor, you have to do so much of research to find out information about companies. So think you are investing, like if you're investing in public equities without knowing what are all the companies which are listed. So that's the scenario that existed for the private market. When you have to invest in any sector, say, if you want to invest in D2C brands, you feel that, there are a lot of interesting companies that are going to come in that space. There is no one place where you can find all the companies in that landscape. You literally probably have to spend a few days Googling, finding out all the list of companies, finding out information about it. And I realized that as investors, everyone was sort of, recreating this whole wheel in finding out information about that. And, if you look at on the other side, startups are spending so much of effort in getting discovered by companies, by getting discovered by investors, right? So how do we actually bridge that gap? So that was initial motivation of, me. Having thought that, this platform like Tracxn should exist. And the initial idea was that can we use technology to be able to bridge this information gap between the private market investors and the startup ecosystem. And if you look at the parallel public markets, for instance, public market has the luxury of a lot of platforms like a Bloomberg, Refinitiv, CapIQ, FactSet, etc. If you look at the private market, there was no platform that sort of existed. And we really wished that a platform like this existed when we were sort of investors. And we wanted to build a global platform in this space. So that's how the idea of Tracxn got born.
And that's how the Tracxn aims to bridge that gap, if I'm correct on that aspect.
That's correct.
Also, Tracxn was launched in 2013 and it captivated the attention of investors due to its strong database of information. If you can perhaps share us your journey or any key milestones of Tracxn under your leadership.
So I think it has been, slightly over a decade, of us building this platform. And obviously there has been a lot of interesting milestones that you've been able to, sort of achieve in this decade. If I were to look back at some of the key milestones that probably, still stick with me even today, the two highlights would be, one is, getting actually a personal check from Mr. Ratan Tata, for the company. So obviously, you grew up seeing that figure, being inspired by that figure ever, when you were sort of a child. And when after we launched the startup, so this was in 2016, that we eventually got an opportunity to meet him and pitched the idea to him, and he ended up investing in the company. So that's probably one of the highlights, when I look back, that stands out. And probably the other big highlight, I would say, milestone that we're really proud of is we got an opportunity to get listed. So we got listed about 2 years back on NSE and BSE. When we were starting the company, we wish in some in some years maybe, if the journey goes really well, we'll probably get listed, maybe like 1 or 2 decades. And interestingly for us, it happened in the 9th year after starting the company.
Right.
So I think that's probably the 2 highlights that when I look back, that really stuck to me.
And it perhaps set the ball rolling for future accomplishments of Tracxn. Before our recording today, we were talking about how there's so many startups in India that have emerged. You also mentioned about unicorns. I just want to seek your analysis or perhaps assessment on how the kind of trends that you're seeing amongst the startups in India, and how is Tracxn preparing it for it?
Right. So one of our endeavor is basically how do you constantly track the evolving startup ecosystem, and one of the ways in which we actually do that is obviously capturing a lot of startups, but also capturing the emerging technology sectors. So one of the things what we have been able to try to keep pace with is the wide variety of sectors in which startups are today getting started. So initially, if you look at it, startups were probably limited to a few sectors like e-commerce or maybe enterprise, right? Today, I think fast forward, probably 10, 15 years, startups have touched all industries. There is no industry wherein you don't have that innovation. To give you an example, like even if you look at the most offline industry, like, cement or, construction, you have startups who are, doing that, or defense tech, you have now startups taking a stab at that. Or if you look at the more cutting edge sectors like space tech, you have startups now launching rockets and launching satellites. That is something that obviously you would not have imagined 10 years back, that there would be such a breadth of sectors in which they are touching. So I think that is one thing that we have been able to try to keep pace with, which is continue to track all the emerging sectors where startups are coming and growing. And this interestingly, we are able to do that also globally. So we basically track startups not just in India but also globally. And you'll be amazed at what are all the sectors that keep coming up. Like, to give you an example, one of the sectors we recently launched is organ on a chip, right?
Organ on a chip.
Yeah. So what that means is essentially, when you have to do drug testing, you probably have to do drug testing on humans or animals. Right now, you have chips wherein you can actually do drug testing on that, right? So that obviously, and there are about a dozen companies who are targeting that problem. So it's interesting that how do you as a company constantly have to evolve yourself so that you are firstly tracking as well as covering all these emerging sectors globally in the startup landscape.
Especially with technology taking a leap forward with the examples that you gave. I also want to talk to you more about your educational background. You are a gold medalist from IIT Bombay, and also you did your MBA from Stanford Graduate School. Talk to us more about how your education journey shaped you and prepared you for your career in venture capital.
So your schooling is probably one of the key building blocks, what prepares you, as you jump into entrepreneurship. So if I were to take away some of the key lessons from IIT, I think tech was one of the things, or more specifically coding was one of the things that I probably took away. So interestingly, yes. So I was a comp science undergrad from IIT Bombay, and I had coded when I was an undergrad, but obviously when I started my job, it did not involve any sort of coding. Interestingly, when I actually started my career in the venture capital space, I realized that you can actually use technology to find out information about companies in a much more efficient manner, so that it shrinks your job or what requires a week to just a couple of hours. So that was my one motivation, that I actually, some of the skills that I had learned probably in IIT, so the first version of Tracxn was actually coded by me. It's the first, small scripts. And that was one of the inspiration that, yes, you can actually use technology to solve this problem, to find out information about private companies, which is much more unstructured than what you have in the public market
Which
space.
is also the bedrock of your company, Tracxn.
That's correct. So I think that is something I take away from IIT that was probably helpful in Tracxn what it is today. And Stanford is obviously a great place to get started. So interestingly, Tracxn actually got started when I was in Stanford, between the first and the second year of my MBA. And I think Stanford globally has a lot of pool, attracts a lot of people who are there to do entrepreneurship, to launch startups. So I think that's a great place to probably launch your startup.
And how did you juggle between doing your MBA at Stanford, which is also very demanding, and also with your startup launching?
So I think Stanford provides a very conducive environment. Like, whenever you want to start, you have a lot of other ecosystem around you to be able to do that. For us, it worked out very well because a lot of our customers were actually in the 10-mile vicinity of the Stanford campus.
Oh.
So all our initial customers were probably very close to the campus. So it worked out well in that sense that, you could actually, like stay in the campus, work on that, and then, just do like a 5-minute or 10-minute drive to actually meet your initial set of customers. So all our initial set of paying customers were all, around the campus.
Right. Also, how do you see Tracxn evolve in the next 5 to 10 years? And what are some key areas that are central to Tracxn's growth? We've, of course, been talking here about how collecting database for private companies is one of the bedrock and one of the major aspects. But what else is Tracxn going to cover moving forward?
So our endeavor is actually to provide that information platform for anyone who's looking at private companies, be it for investment, acquisition, or for partnering for new age vendors, and how do we do that globally. I think what we'll be really proud to be able to have achieved in the next 5 to 10 years. So if you look at India, India has actually been the back office for a lot of other data companies globally. Right, and all the front-end companies have probably been, either in New York or in HQ. Their HQ is probably in London, right? Our endeavor is actually, can we build a global platform, from India for the world, right? So even today, if you look at it, 60% of our revenue is actually from outside India. Right, and we have customers from over 50 countries. So our endeavor is, can we build like a global data platform in the financial data space, out of India?
Okay, and is that the only aspect that sets Tracxn apart from other startups?
So I think one of the things that really sets us apart in terms of this landscape of financial data, or I would say specifically to the private asset class, is probably our technology prowess. So I think this is a little bit in the DNA. So if you look at the whole world of private market data, it's much more unstructured if you compare it to public equities. So if you look at public equities, there are about 50,000 companies listed globally, and there's fairly structured information that's there. If you look at the parallel private markets, there are millions of startups which are there globally, thousands getting created every day.
Right.
And there's fairly unstructured information about it. So I think technology has been one key building block, I would say, that sets us apart from any other financial data platform that exists today. And that's a little bit in the DNA of the company, and that's what has probably made us so agile and so successful. And this I hope continues to be one of the key building blocks as we continue to scale the company.
Absolutely missing. We have been talking about the success of Tracxn, but I do understand that climbing the ladder is never easy. What are some challenges that you faced when you started Tracxn or during the initial phases of the company?
So I would say building the company is never easy, and there are lots of highs and lows which are there. But I think for us, we probably took it a little bit in a stride. There were challenges, obviously, as you're sort of scaling the company, you are, raising capital, you are hiring the teams, you are, building teams, across in different geographies. But I think for us, probably the problem kept us motivated. So, thankfully, we did not see them as challenges, probably, something that had to be dealt with, more balls coming in, how do you keep hitting them? Right. So I think that's what probably kept us, sort of going.
And just to follow up on that, how do you keep yourself and also people who work with you extremely motivated?
So I think the problem really motivates us. The problem of what our endeavor is to actually make the information about private markets, about companies, much more accessible for everyone. I think that's what probably keeps us really motivated and going every day. And every day, whenever you're speaking to, your customers or clients, people are looking at different things. People want more data. People, say for instance, an investor wants to invest in fintech globally, but is not able to find out those companies. So can we help make their job easier? I think that has been one of our endeavors, that probably keeps us motivated, which is, when you're meeting customers, when you're meeting corporates, how do you keep solving their problems in a much more efficient manner?
And looking ahead, what are some key goals, key objectives that you want Tracxn to achieve?
So I think in terms of two goals is, one is, right now, if you look at the companies, there's a lot more data which is getting available about companies, right? It's not just about digital footprint. So for instance, there's a lot of, so right now, a lot of the companies acquire their customers, digitally. So there's a lot of information that is available about the companies digitally, as well as there's also, push from the governments to actually make more regulatory data available about companies. So one is my endeavor is, how do you keep adding more and more data sets about these companies? Like you have, like currently we capture data about private companies across 30 countries.
Okay.
Right. We capture, legal entity data about 60 million companies, right? So one is going more deeper into that aspect. The second thing is that how do we keep ourselves as a global company? We today have customers from over 50 countries. So how do you keep making, sort of those geographies more deeper? I think that is one of the two things that we'll continue to sort of work on.
So basically juggling between also establishing a footprint here in India and worldwide as well.
That's correct.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but according to my research, you're the first entrepreneur in your family, and you clearly said that you want to start something of your own. Talk to us more about that.
So I'm the first entrepreneur in my family. If you look at my entire family, there are hardly any people that have started a business. To give you an example, my dad is from IIT Kanpur. He's a nuclear scientist. Okay. My brother is from IIT Bombay. He's been in the oil and gas sector all these years. And startup was never the way of life. Unlike my co-founder, who probably comes from a Marwadi family, in which you've seen a lot of businesses. It was never for me. It was never the way of life. So for me, I think it was more the problem that attracted for you to take the plunge and devote your next decade of the life to actually solving that. And for quite some time, I guess, my parents were still trying to understand why am I doing this and why am I leaving such a good job of, earlier management consulting and then a VC and then taking the plunge to become an entrepreneur. So they could not probably appreciate it early on. And I would say probably when, we got the funding with Mr. Tata, that was probably one of the time when they realized maybe you're doing something really, nice.
Right. That absolutely, I'm sure it was an uphill battle to achieve so much. If you can attribute your success to one key principle or lesson, what would that be?
It will probably be hunger. So hunger to do something big, hunger to be able to maximize your, ability, in a sense of do justice to all the abilities and, work hard and be able to achieve. I think probably hunger is what keeps you driving.
Right. And as the CEO and co-founder of Tracxn, how do you define success?
So I think if we look back, we would be really happy if we are able to build a large brand in the financial data space for us. So, it should happen, at least 10 years from now. Anyone globally who's thinking about data on companies, they should think about Tracxn. So how do we able to achieve it? I think when we are able to do that, I would say that we have done a good job.
And Ms. Singh, talking more about the achievements and the accolades under your belt, let me just list out some. From Outstanding Women in Business by Outlook Business in 2016 to also the prestigious 40 under 40 list. So you do have a lot of accomplishments, a lot of accolades under your belt. But if you look back to almost a decade of Tracxn being launched, would you do anything differently?
So one of the things that I have realized over time is, you can actually dream big.
Yeah, they say aim for the moon and you land amongst the stars.
Right. And, probably early on, you do not understand that as you're probably, a student or you're just starting your career. You do not appreciate, the meaning of this. And, over time, when you are able to, have those achievements of what you had thought maybe happened, in some time in future, I think that probably really sort of motivates you. So I think one of the things that probably if I were to look back and if I were to advise myself is continue to dream big and you'll be surprised at what you end up achieving. To give you a small example, when we were starting, we had thought about the fact that, okay, we were thinking about where do you have your, headquarter. We initially were thinking about starting the company in US, but eventually we started had the HQ in India and started the company because we thought, maybe sometime in future, if we become a large profitable company, then it will be a good story for getting listed. No, but for us, it happened in the first 9 years. If someone would have told me, had I imagined it, of course not. I would have imagined maybe like in the first 20 years. But I think so. One of the things, if I were to tell back, is like dream big, and you'll be surprised at what you end up achieving.
And during our conversation so far, you did mention that you love solving problems, and that's one of your motivations as well. But I'm sure sometimes you might get under pressure, or if I can say, you might get nervous. What do you do then?
So I think just keep your heads down and just focus at the problem of hand. So that's probably keeps you going. I think you forget about all the other things. You just you just focus on what needs to be solved that day.
Keeping all the business and motivational talks aside, we want to know you more, better as a person. So, are you a 5 a.m. club person, or do you like waking up late and taking things slow?
Unfortunately, I am a 5 a.m. person. For the last 2 years, it has been getting up at 5 a.m. nearly every day, and a workout from 6 to 7 a.m. nearly every day. I think this was not there. I was not in the 5 a.m. club probably 5 years back, but for the last 2 years, and hopefully going forward, I am a 5 a.m. person.
So apart from that habit of waking up early, what else do you think, what other habits do you think define a successful person, which you also follow?
So there are two things that I really swear by. So one is that fitness regime, and the other one is task management. And I think these are two skills or two things which probably are essential for all leaders, I would say. So one is just investing in fitness, right? So for instance, for me, it is, like at least 3 to 4 sessions of yoga every week, 3 to 4 sessions of strength training every week. That is probably, one of the key things that keeps you going through the entire day.
Right.
That's one. And the second thing I would say is probably task management. You have to be good at calendar management. You have to be good
time
at
management, basically.
Yes, and you have to be good at getting all the tasks sort of in your calendar and getting them completed. That's, I would say, a key pillar, of defining how the successful leader. And that is what I also tell to all the other people in the firm to continue to have this as you sort of grow in your career.
And that also helps you, rather gives you like a boost, because you end up achieving small goals and you're like, okay, let's go ahead with the bigger aims and goals in life.
That's correct.
Also, after a long day, how do you unwind yourself?
So I have 2 kids, one a toddler and an infant. Actually, my infant just turned 1 year this week. So I think, just spending time with them, that's the best way that you can spend your evenings.
How sweet. Are there any hobbies that you've picked up?
So one hobby which has been, if I were to look at it, throughout my, as a student as well as in the career, is my interest in tech. For instance, I had a computer in the 1990s. I started using internet before there was the HTTP. So you could actually, you literally had to switch on your modem to actually log on to internet. So I was probably interested in tech since then. And I think that has been a common theme across all these years. That's one of the reasons why I also wanted to do, for instance, computer science in IIT Bombay. And even today, I think, I'm sort of fairly hands-on with tech. And today, with everything happening in Gen AI and, technology stack, you as a leader have to be very hands-on in that, right? So that, I think, is a key sort of thing which has stayed with me. And I also think that for all the other business leaders, this is one of the key skills. You have to be very hands-on at understanding technology, at being able to be very comfortable, because the way you design your organization, if you have that, is very differently if you did not understand that tech.
Right, and tech is also evolving so rapidly every now and then. What is the best piece of advice that you have received and that you swear by?
So one of the piece of advice that I received 2 years back, and which has become a ritual right now, is investing in fitness. To give you, and that has been sort of really important as I've grown up. To give you an example, when I had my 2 kids, I was probably in office till like 1 day before they got delivered, and like 2 weeks after they got delivered. So for all the people that were working in my team, they were like, you were never absent, you were never unavailable. And I think that is one thing which I look back, and I'm thankful for the advice that I got. And I think that is one of the things that has probably ensured that I'm I'm up and running always.
And that was an advice that you received. But what advice would you like to give to people who want to become like you, the young techies or the young entrepreneurs who also wish to perhaps open their own firms one day?
One advice that I would give to all aspiring entrepreneurs is that now is a great time to start. So when we started 10 years back, I think risk capital was still available, to a smaller degree of extent than what it is today. The talent pool was much shallower. Today, there is talent pool for all types of skills that you want to hire. There's good risk capital that is available. So for all the people who are wondering, whether to start or not, now is a great time to start. And the second thing I would say is that start in India. You're always wondering whether you need to go to the Bay Area to start or to go to India and start. I would say start now and start in India today.
So basically, you should never be afraid of failures, but because once you start, failures are bound to happen. The last question for you, what would be the most important skill set that you think the young professionals should have to succeed?
So I think as founders, as entrepreneurs, one of the things that is probably very essential as you're launching your companies and scaling is to pick a problem that you would really love to solve for the next decade. Right. So whatever you end up doing, even if your startup is very successful, if you look at the most successful startups, in India who have scaled, who have also had an exit, it's probably been like a 10-year journey. Right? Even for like a company like Flipkart, who had such a one of the biggest actually the biggest exit from India. It's a decade-long journey before the exit happens. And for most founders who will continue to run this will probably be 10 to 20 years. So it will be a good part of your working life. So for all people who are probably starting, one of the things that I say is that choose a problem that you would love to solve for most of your career, because you're going to spend most of your working life solving that.
And that will act like, if I can say, as an elixir for people to move forward. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Singh, for joining us on WION Business Masters and sharing your insights, your incredible journey with us.
Thanks for having me.
And with that, we come towards the end of this edition of WION Business Masters. But stay tuned for our next episode, where we uncover more transformative stories from industry leaders.